He was about to sign and lose it all, until the cleaning woman whispered the truth in his ear. "Don't sign. It's a trap," Sophia whispered, her voice dangerously close to Santiago Morales's ear as she feigned wiping down the table. "They're going to take everything. You'll be left on the street, alone, with nothing." Santiago Morales froze, his pen hovering inches from the contract that was meant to change his life. The air in the boardroom of Morales Tech Solutions was thick, heavy with an almost palpable expectation, a toxic blend of euphoria and a subtle, nearly imperceptible sense of dread. Ricardo Vargas, the 50-year-old magnate of Vargas Corporation, a man with the reputation of a relentless predator in the world of finance, wore a smile that never reached his eyes as he pushed the voluminous contract towards Santiago. The silver pen in Santiago's hand, a visionary 35-year-old entrepreneur who had built his tech empire from scratch with sheer tenacity and dreams forged in sleepless nights, was millimeters from stamping his signature on what was supposed to be the pinnacle of his career. It was a merger that promised to triple his fortune and cement his legacy in Bogotá's competitive business landscape. In his mind, a decade of sacrifice, risky decisions, and superhuman effort all came down to this single moment, to the one signature that would elevate him to unimaginable heights, transforming him into a living legend in the ruthless universe of Colombian business. And yet, a cold, icy fear, a pang of anxiety that defied all business logic, began to slither up his spine. A silent warning that something, deep down, was wrong with this picture-perfect scene of victory. His blue eyes met those of the woman who had just spoken to him, a cleaning lady who had been working in the building for months without him ever truly noticing her presence. She was Sofia Cortez, a 28-year-old with honey-colored eyes that held an unsuspected depth and an intelligence few bothered to perceive beneath her humble occupation. Santiago's heart hammered like a war drum, the sound deafening in his own ears. Something in her voice, in the desperate urgency of her barely audible words, had paralyzed him completely, planting a seed of doubt in the fertile ground of his unbridled ambition. It wasn't just the content of the message that had frozen him, but the raw conviction and palpable fear that emanated from her, a brutal honesty that stood in sharp contrast to the calculated smiles and empty promises of the boardroom. He looked at Sophia again, and for the first time, he saw past the uniform. He saw eyes filled with fear, yes, but also with an unbreakable determination, a spark of courage that made him question everything he thought he knew about this momentous day. "Excuse me," murmured Julián Torres, his partner and best friend since childhood. His brow furrowed in mild annoyance, as if Sophia's interruption were an unforgivable stain on the impeccable tapestry of their imminent triumph. "Is there a problem, Santiago? Mr. Vargas is getting impatient, and we wouldn't want to appear unprofessional at such a crucial moment for our company's future." Julián's voice, always so familiar and reassuring, now sounded distant, almost hollow in Santiago's mind, tinged with an edge of impatience he had never noticed before. Santiago could barely gather his thoughts, his mind racing to decipher the puzzle of Sophia's warning, while the weight of the pen in his hand suddenly felt unbearable, laden with a responsibility that went far beyond ink and paper. Julián's gaze was piercing, a mixture of curiosity and faint reproach. And Santiago felt the pressure of Vargas's eyes as well, fixed on him, demanding an immediate answer he simply couldn't give without revealing the whirlwind of uncertainty that assailed him. I just need a moment to review this clause, Santiago lied, pointing to a random paragraph in the contract with a trembling hand, hoping to buy himself a breath, a single second to bring order to the chaos that had erupted in his mind. Ricardo Vargas, the elegant businessman, representing the most important merger of his career, tapped his fingers impatiently on the table, the rhythmic sound of his knuckles like a menacing tick-tock in the charged silence of the room. Morales? Vargas snapped, his voice dripping with exasperation. We've been negotiating this for 6 months. You've had all the time in the world to review every comma. There's no time for last-minute doubts. You either sign now or the offer is off the table. And I assure you, an opportunity like this won't come again, not in 20 years. Julián leaned in, wearing the same smile Santiago had seen 1,000 times since they were boys, selling candy on the buses of Medellin. A smile that now seemed distorted, almost grotesque in its insistence. Brother, this is what we've always dreamed of, Julián whispered, his voice an echo of old promises. Your tech company merged with Vargas Corporation will make you the richest man in Colombia. A legend. What more do you need to know? What doubt could possibly be greater than the realization of our dream? Santiago glanced at the contract again, his eyes scanning the clauses and figures that promised untold prosperity. It was all there. Everything he had worked for over the last 10 years. The transfer of shares, the new executive positions with astronomical salaries, the financial projections that would triple his personal fortune. A bright, secure future that had been the engine of his every waking moment. The culmination of a life of effort, the tangible result of every sacrifice and every risk. But the cleaning woman's words, Sophia's desperate whisper, kept ringing in his head like a shrill alarm, piercing the bubble of euphoria and dragging him back to the harsh reality of a possible betrayal. The image of her eyes, full of fear, but also a strange, moving determination, was seared into his mind, eclipsing the seductive shine of the numbers and the promises of Vargas and Julián. Give me 5 minutes, Santiago said suddenly, his voice surprisingly firm, despite the storm of emotions inside him. He stood up abruptly, shattering the tense silence of the room. Just 5 minutes to clear my head, to make a decision with a clear mind, so I don't regret it for the rest of my life. Julián shot to his feet, his usual smile vanishing, replaced by a mask of forced concern. We can't keep Mr. Vargas waiting, Santiago. His time is money. A delay like this could cost us the deal. Even our reputation, he hissed, his voice laced with an urgency that suddenly struck Santiago as strangely false. 5 minutes, Santiago repeated, with unshakable resolve, and he walked toward the boardroom door without looking back. His footsteps echoed with a decision that was no longer just about business, but about the overwhelming need to understand the warning that had shaken him to his very core. The moment he stepped into the hallway, the air seemed lighter, but the feeling of a presence behind him confirmed he was not alone in this risky search for the truth. It was her, Sophia, the woman who had changed everything with a single phrase, with a whisper that had shattered the illusion of his success and thrown him into an abyss of uncertainty. Mr. Morales, Sophia whispered, glancing nervously down both ends of the hall, as if she feared being seen, as if the very air might betray her. Her eyes, once veiled with concern, now shone with a palpable urgency, a silent plea to be heard before it was too late. I know you don't know me. To you, I'm just the woman who cleans at night, a ghost who erases your traces from the office. But I've been working here for months, moving through the shadows after everyone has gone home. I've seen things. I've heard conversations that weren't meant for my ears. And what I know could save you from total ruin. Santiago held up a hand to stop her, his mind already processing the gravity of her words, the sheer improbability of a situation that nonetheless felt terrifyingly real. Who are you? He asked, his voice barely a murmur, as he studied her face, truly seeing her for the first time. She was young, perhaps 28, as he'd guessed, with her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail and the most honest, direct eyes he had seen in a long time. Eyes that reflected an almost painful innocence in this world of sharks. My name is Sofia Cortez, she answered, her body trembling slightly, as if the simple act of speaking exposed her to imminent danger. I clean the offices at night, when the silence of the building allows the walls to talk and the secrets to come out. I know I sound crazy, that a humble cleaning woman shouldn't know what a magnate does. But that merger, Mr. Morales, it's not what it seems. It's a trap, designed with cold, calculated malice. They are going to steal everything from you. Every cent, every share, every dream you built with your own hands. You won't just lose your company. You will lose your future, your legacy, your dignity, and they will leave you on the street with nothing but the echo of what you once were. I know this with every fiber of my being because I've seen it, I've felt it, I've heard it, and I cannot stay silent while you walk toward your own destruction. Santiago felt the floor shift beneath his feet, a sudden vertigo that threw him off balance. For 35 years, he had trusted his business instincts implicitly, his nose for success and for danger. And something in this woman's voice, in the sincere desperation of her gaze, told him she was not crazy at all. Her warning was an inescapable truth, striking him with the force of a lightning bolt. What exactly do you know? Santiago asked, his voice low and tense with a mixture of disbelief and rising alarm. His mind struggling to grasp the magnitude of what Sophia was revealing. Sophia glanced nervously at the closed boardroom door, as if she feared the walls themselves might be listening. Before she answered, her voice was a mere whisper. Your partner, Mr. Torres, Julián. I've heard his phone calls when I work at night, when the offices are empty, and he feels safe, invincible. He and Vargas have been planning this for years, weaving a web of deceit and betrayal with cold, calculated patience. Vargas Corporation is completely bankrupt, Mr. Morales. It's just a facade, an empty shell about to collapse. They're going to use your assets to cover their monstrous debts, to divert attention from the impending bankruptcy hanging over them like a sword. It's a rescue operation, yes, but the one being rescued will be Vargas, and the one who will drown without a life raft in sight will be you. Sophia continued, her words falling like ice-cold hammer blows on Santiago's chest, each one more devastating than the last. Once you sign that contract, Mr. Morales, they will transfer all of Vargas Corporation's massive liabilities to your name. You will be ruined, left with a mountain of debt you can never repay. Your company will be dismantled, your reputation shattered, and your life will become a financial and personal hell. The scale of the betrayal hit him with the force of a freight train. Julián, his brother in all but blood, the one who had been with him when his mother died, when he started his first company in a tiny 20 square meter apartment, when he had nothing but dreams and an unbreakable will. That same man, his confidant, his rock, was behind this. The irony was a knife twisting in his heart. That's impossible, Santiago murmured, but his voice sounded weak and broken, even to himself, unable to believe that the person closest to him could be capable of such treachery. I have proof, Sophia said quickly, as if sensing his disbelief. She pulled out her phone with hands that were trembling but firm. Photos of financial documents, call recordings, emails. It's all here. I've been collecting it for months, not knowing why, just feeling that something was wrong, that there was a darkness lurking in the shadows of this building. And now I know it was to save you. At that exact moment, as if fate delighted in adding more tension to the unbearable situation, the boardroom door creaked open. Julián poked his head out, his face stretched into a forced smile that didn't reach his eyes. Santiago, brother, they're waiting for you, Julián said, his voice a mixture of impatience and a familiarity that now sounded strangely hollow, almost threatening. Mr. Vargas is not a man who likes to be kept waiting. It's the moment of truth. Time to sign and celebrate. Santiago looked at Julián, his lifelong friend, and then at Sophia, who stared back at him with a look of desperate hope and silent terror. His entire world, everything he thought he knew, everything he had built with so much effort and trust, was about to shatter into 1,000 pieces, like a house of cards in a sudden, violent storm. Metaphorically, he held two options in his hands, two divergent paths, each leading to an abyss of unknown consequences. He could trust the friend he had known since he was 12, the man with whom he had shared his sorrows and joys, his triumphs and failures, the confidant who had been his shadow and his unwavering support through the most difficult moments of his life. He could believe a complete stranger, a cleaning woman who had, with a few words and a handful of evidence on a phone, just shattered everything he had ever believed in. Every pillar upon which he had built his life and his success. The scales of his reality tipped precariously, and the weight of the decision was almost unbearable. I'm coming, he told Julián, his voice far more controlled than he felt. Julián nodded with a strangely relieved smile and closed the door, leaving Santiago alone once more with Sophia, and with the raw, painful truth she had just revealed. Santiago turned to face her. She watched him with that mixture of hope and terror, her eyes pleading with him to listen, to not ignore her warning. If you're lying, Santiago began, his voice low and laced with a barely veiled threat, doubt still gnawing at his soul despite the growing conviction. I'm not lying, she interrupted, her eyes locked on his, without a hint of hesitation. There was only an iron resolve in them that disarmed him instantly. I know you have no reason to believe me, Mr. Morales. To you, I'm a stranger who appeared out of nowhere with an unbelievable story. I know you might think I'm crazy or that I have some hidden motive, but I can't stay silent. I can't watch you sign off on your own destruction. I can't watch you walk toward an abyss that will steal everything from you. your company, your fortune, your dignity, your future. They will leave you on the street with nothing but the echo of who you once were. I know this with every fiber of my being because I've seen it, I've felt it, I've heard it, and my conscience won't let me stay quiet while you walk toward your own ruin. The determination in her voice, the way her hands trembled slightly despite the unwavering firmness of her gaze, told Santiago everything he needed to know. In that moment, despite all business logic, despite the years of friendship with Julián, a deeper truth settled in his heart. This woman was risking her job, her livelihood, perhaps even her safety, just to warn him about something she had discovered by chance, or perhaps by fate. It was an act of selfless courage that moved him to his core, and deep in his heart, in that place where he kept all the doubts he had ignored for months, the small warning signs he had dismissed as paranoia, Santiago knew with overwhelming certainty that Sophia was right. It was a gut feeling that screamed louder than any logical argument, an inner voice that confirmed the truth in her words. "Show me the proof," Santiago said, his voice barely a whisper in the empty hallway. A surrender to the truth that had presented itself in the most unlikely way. Sophia glanced nervously toward the boardroom, making sure no one saw them, before quickly guiding him to her private office. A small cubicle on the lower floor where she kept her cleaning supplies. And now, the evidence of a devastating betrayal. Her hands trembled as she closed the door to her small office, a modest space with barely enough room for a chair and a desk. But her eyes remained firm, filled with an unshakable conviction. With a decisive click, she engaged the lock, creating a bubble of confidentiality in the midst of the bustling, soon-to-be empty building. "I shouldn't be doing this," Sophia murmured, her voice barely audible as she pulled out her phone with a mixture of caution and resolve. "If they find out, Mr. Morales, I'll lose my job, my only means of support. And well, people like Mr. Vargas, with his power and his connections, he can make sure I never, ever find work anywhere again, that I'm blacklisted in this corporate world forever." The gravity of her words was not lost on Santiago. He felt a pang of guilt for the risk she was taking for him, a complete stranger. "Then why are you doing it?" he asked, his voice soft, watching as she nervously scrolled through dozens of photos and hidden files in her phone's gallery, a library of secrets collected in the shadows. She paused, her fingers hovering over the screen, and looked him directly in the eye with an intensity that pierced his soul. "Because I've seen what happens to people when the powerful take advantage of them, Mr. Morales," she answered, her voice heavy with a deep sadness and an old wound. "I've seen how they shatter lives, how they trample on dreams, how they leave people with nothing, all for ambition and greed. My father lost everything, absolutely everything, because he trusted the wrong person, someone who presented himself as his best friend, his savior, and ended up being his executioner. We were left without a home, without savings, without a future. He fell into a depression from which he never fully recovered. I can't. I simply cannot stand by and watch the same thing happen to you. I can't watch them destroy your life the way they destroyed my family's. The risk doesn't matter. My conscience wouldn't allow it." Sophia showed him the first photo, a sharp image of a financial document from Vargas Corporation, covered in red ink. It was an accounting chaos that screamed bankruptcy, a bleak vision of losses, accumulated debts, and an insurmountable financial abyss, a stark contrast to the polished, optimistic figures they had presented in their meetings. I took this picture 3 weeks ago while cleaning Mr. Vargas's office at pause, Sophia explained, swiping to the next image, a balance sheet that confirmed the catastrophe. He left these papers on his desk, in plain sight for anyone curious enough to look. The company is completely broke, Mr. Morales. They owe more than 200 million pesos, an astronomical sum they can never repay. And they have no way to cover it. This isn't just a crisis, it's total ruin. A bottomless pit they can't climb out of without dragging someone else down with them. Santiago felt his mouth go dry, a knot of panic tightening in his stomach. The numbers didn't lie. The evidence was undeniable. Vargas Corporation was on the brink of total collapse, and he was about to become their lifeline, or rather, their scapegoat. But this could be, I don't know, temporary, Santiago said, his voice sounding unconvincing even to himself, trying to cling to the last thread of denial. Large companies, they always have complicated cash flows, liquidity problems that resolve over time. Sophia gave him no quarter. She swiped to another photo, this time of an open email on a computer screen. This is a conversation between Mr. Vargas and Julián from 2 weeks ago, she said, her voice tense with the revelation. I took it when I was cleaning your partner's office late on a Friday night. He left his computer on, assuming no one, least of all the cleaning lady, would pay any attention. Santiago read the message, and the world seemed to crumble around him, the air rushing from his lungs. Julián, everything is ready for the final phase, the email from Vargas read. Once Morales signs, we transfer the main debts to his name. The idiot suspects nothing. In 6 months, we'll be free, and he'll be ruined. RC. Julián's reply was even worse. A direct blow to the heart of their friendship. Perfect. Santiago was always too trusting. After so many years in his shadow, I'll finally have what I deserve. What I should have always had. Santiago had to sit down, his legs giving way beneath the weight of the betrayal. Julián, the man who was like a brother to him, the only one who had been with him through thick and thin, had been plotting his destruction for years, weaving a web of deceit and resentment in the dark, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. There's more, Sophia said softly, noticing his extreme pallor, his face a mask of shock and pain. But I think this is enough for now, isn't it? I know it's hard to process that everything you thought you knew has just fallen apart. Santiago lifted his head, his eyes blazing with a contained fury and a pain that tore at his soul. Anger and sorrow swirled into a devastating vortex. I want to see everything, he demanded, his voice rough, but with a resolution that allowed no argument. Every detail, every piece of evidence, every betrayal. I want the whole truth, no matter how painful. Show me everything you have. Sophia nodded, understanding his need to confront the full scope of the treachery, to unravel every thread of the web that had been woven around him. She showed him photo after photo, each image a devastating blow to Santiago's already fragile trust. Then came the recordings, familiar voices with dark intentions, revealing a level of perfidy Santiago could never have imagined. Julián had not only planned his financial ruin, He had been sabotaging major business deals behind his back, leaking confidential information to competitors to weaken his company from within. And, what was even more painful, he had interfered in his relationship with Elena Fuentes, the woman Santiago had loved 3 years ago, with a passion he thought was unbreakable. Here's the proof that he told Elena you were cheating on her, Sophia explained, showing a series of text messages. They were the culmination of a cruel and calculated manipulation. He sent her fake photos, completely fabricated conversations, all designed to sow doubt and pain. He did it so she would leave you, to destroy you, not just in business, but in your personal life as well. Santiago closed his eyes, feeling the sharp, stabbing pain of that breakup all over again, reliving the trauma of Elena disappearing from his life overnight, accusing him of betrayals he had never committed, of lies he had never told. Now, it all made a horrifying kind of sense, a macabre puzzle whose pieces were finally clicking into place, revealing the true extent of Julian's malice. How did you get all this? Santiago asked, opening his eyes and looking at Sophia with a newfound admiration. A mixture of awe and respect he hadn't felt for anyone in a long time. His question was not one of disbelief, but of genuine wonder at her audacity and meticulousness. Sophia blushed slightly, a faint color rising in her cheeks, revealing a vulnerability that made her seem all the more real. I work at night, Mr. Morales, when everyone has gone home and the building is deathly quiet, she explained, her voice soft, almost a whisper. People leave their computers on, documents on their desks. They talk on speakerphone as if they're invisible, as if the walls don't have ears, as if I'm a ghost who sees nothing. I suppose to them, I'm just the cleaning girl, an insignificant shadow they have no reason to fear. They never imagined that Shadow was recording every move, every word, every secret. The irony of it, that his near total ruin had been averted by the humblest of sources, was something Santiago was still trying to process. And you study too? Santiago asked, noticing for the first time the business administration textbook stacked neatly in a corner of her small desk, amongst the cleaning products. It was a jarring image, but one that revealed a hidden, ambitious side of her. Business administration at the university, night classes, Sophia replied, a fleeting glint of pride in her eyes. My little sister is studying medicine on a scholarship, and well, one day I want to have my own cleaning services company, but not just any company. One where the employees are treated with dignity, paid fairly, where they're seen as people, not disposable tools. I know it sounds silly to someone like you. A small dream, perhaps. It doesn't sound silly at all, Santiago interrupted, his voice firm with a conviction that surprised her. It sounds ambitious, brave, and admirable. That's the kind of dream that moves mountains, Sophia. It's the kind of vision that truly matters in this world. They fell silent for a moment, looking into each other's eyes. And for the first time in years, Santiago felt truly seen by someone. Not for his money, his status, or his reputation, but for who he really was. A sharp, authoritative knock on the door of Sophia's small office startled them, breaking the delicate thread of connection that had formed between them. Santiago? It was Julian's voice, laced with a poorly concealed impatience, in a tone that now sounded insidious to Santiago. Where the hell are you? Castellanos is getting antsy, and it's not good to keep a man like him waiting. especially not one who's about to make you a multimillionaire. Get a move on, brother. The opportunity of a lifetime is slipping away. Santiago looked at Sophia, who had gone completely pale, fear returning to her once determined eyes. What are we going to do? She whispered, her voice trembling as the reality of the danger closed in on them. Time was running out, and the balance of his fate hung by a thread. Santiago stood up, feeling the overwhelming sense of betrayal that had paralyzed him slowly transform into a cold, steely determination. It was time to act. He would no longer be the victim. He would be the hunter. We're going to give them exactly what they're expecting, Santiago said, his voice low, almost inaudible, but with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. A grim, calculated smirk. They are going to get the show of their lives, the grand finale they so desperately crave, but with a script they never imagined. They are going to watch as their masterpiece of deceit becomes their own prison, their own personal hell. He turned to Sophia, his gaze filled with a newfound confidence, one that wasn't naive, but strategic. But first, he said, I need you to help me plan our own trap. A trap so subtle, so precise, they won't see it coming until it's far too late, until they are hopelessly entangled in their own web of lies. Sophia nodded, her honey-colored eyes gleaming with a mixture of fear and an unusual excitement, understanding the magnitude of the challenge before them. And in that moment, they both knew their lives had changed forever. There was no turning back. They had crossed a threshold from which they could never return as the same people. They were no longer the millionaire and the cleaning lady. They were partners in the pursuit of truth, forging a justice that felt as personal as it was universal. And perhaps, though neither dared to admit it yet, something far more important than business was beginning to bloom between them. A deep, authentic connection that transcended all their differences. For the next 3 days, Santiago and Sophia became detectives of the night, architects of a vengeance that sought justice more than simple punishment. Every night, after the immense building emptied of its employees and silence took hold of the corridors, they met clandestinely in Santiago's luxurious office, the very stage of his near ruin. There, under the dim light of the desk lamps, they submerged themselves in a labyrinth of evidence, meticulously reviewing every document, every recording, every detail Sophia had accumulated with admirable patience. It was a nightly ritual of discovery and planning, where each new piece of proof was another dagger twisted deeper into Santiago's heart, not just for the betrayal itself, but for the years of friendship with Julián, now revealed as a cruel and elaborate farce. The pain was tangible, a constant presence in the room, but their shared determination, fueled by an unbreakable sense of justice, was stronger still. Here's the bank transfer they made last month, Sophia said one night, her voice low and focused, showing him a crisp photo of a financial document on her phone. It was an image that exposed the rot at the conspiracy's core. They moved 50 million pesos from a ghost account, an untraceable offshore account, directly into the pockets of Castellanos and other accounts I believe belonged to Julián. A money laundering operation as shameless as it was audacious. It's irrefutable proof of the fraud, the fingerprint of their greed. Santiago studied the numbers, each digit feeling like a sharpened blade piercing his heart, tearing him apart, not only because of the scale of the treachery, but because of the years of a friendship now revealed as a cold, calculated lie. Julián and I met when we were 12, Santiago murmured, his voice laced with a profound sadness. He stared out the window at the flickering lights of Bogotá, a city that now seemed strangely alien, a canvas of stained memories. We used to sell candy on the buses just to survive, dreaming of a better future, of escaping the poverty that was suffocating us. When my mother died, he was the one who helped me get a job at the auto shop so I could pay for my studies, so I wouldn't give up. He was my shadow, my support, my confidant, my only family. Sophia placed her phone on the desk and moved closer to him, a silent empathy radiating from her presence. A tacit understanding had formed between them, a connection forged in shared pain and vulnerability. What happened to your mother? Sophia asked softly, her voice a caress in the darkness of his memory. Cancer, Santiago replied simply, the single word heavy with the ache of an early loss. The life insurance barely covered the hospital debts and gave me a little something to start over, to keep from falling into complete despair. Julián was with me at the funeral. He was my best man when I graduated from college, my partner when I founded my first company in a garage, when we had nothing but dreams and a blind faith in the future. He was my brother, my chosen family, the person I trusted with my entire life. His voice broke slightly at the end. Sophia felt an urge to comfort him that surprised her, a need to reach out and soothe his suffering, a gesture that revealed the growing closeness between them. I'm so sorry, Sophia said gently, her voice full of genuine compassion. It must be horrible to discover that someone so important in your life, someone you loved and trusted blindly, has been weaving a web of deceit behind your back, that he was a wolf in sheep's clothing. Do you know what the worst part is? Santiago interrupted, turning to face her, his eyes a storm of pain and resentment. That a part of me, deep down, always knew something was wrong. There was a crack in the perfect facade of our friendship. Deals that would fall through at the last minute with no real explanation. Important clients who would disappear overnight. Golden opportunities that would mysteriously vanish just as we were about to seize them. There were signs, Sophia. Little alarms my intuition was screaming about. But I never wanted to suspect him. I never wanted to believe that my own brother, my confidant, my partner, could be capable of such a cold, calculating betrayal. I chose to ignore the warnings, to blind myself to the truth, because the alternative was too painful to contemplate. I was naive, a blind, trusting fool. Sophia nodded, understanding that feeling perfectly. The internal conflict between trust and creeping doubt, the denial of truth for fear of the pain it would bring. Her own past echoed with that very same experience. My father was the same way, she said, her voice tinged with melancholy. He trusted everyone, especially his best friend, the man he considered his blood brother. That man convinced him to invest all of his savings, every cent we had gathered through years of hard work, in a ghost business that never existed. An elaborate scam that left us ruined. We lost our house, our stability, our hope. Dad fell into a deep depression, a darkness he has struggled to climb out of ever since. She paused, her eyes moist as she relived the memory's sting. That's why I left Cali, to start over, to find an opportunity in Bogotá, to escape the past that was drowning us and build a different future for myself and my family. And your family? Santiago asked, his voice soft, a genuine curiosity and concern in his tone. My sister? She's studying medicine on a university scholarship, but I send her money every month for her basic expenses so she can focus on her studies without worry, Sophia replied, a hint of pride in her voice. My parents? Well, Dad never fully recovered from the scam. The betrayal scarred him for life. Mom works in a grocery store to stay afloat, to pay the bills, to try and rebuild what little they have left. I am my family's hope, Senor Morales. I'm the one who has to get ahead, who has to fight for a better future for all of us. Santiago watched her with a growing admiration, a mixture of respect and awe at her resilience. This woman was not only brave and intelligent, but she carried immense responsibilities on her young shoulders, a level of maturity most people her age couldn't handle in their wildest dreams. That's why you work at night and study during the day, Santiago said, comprehension finally dawning on his face as he connected the pieces of her story. It's a double life of effort and sacrifice, an exhausting path few would choose. And that's why I clean offices, Sophia added, with a sad smile, a smile that reflected the weight of her reality, but also a startling dignity. It's not glamorous. It's not what I dreamed of doing with my life, but it pays well. It lets me send money to my family, and most importantly, it allows me to pay for my studies. It opens the doors to a better future. Someday, Senor Morales, I'll have my own company. A cleaning services company, yes, but one that will be an example of ethics and humane treatment. And I'll be able to help my family as they deserve, giving them the dignified life that was stolen from them by betrayal. That's the engine that drives me every single day. They fell silent for a moment, sharing a profound mutual understanding, a tacit connection that transcended their differences in origin and status. Santiago realized it had been years since he had spoken to someone so honestly, so deeply, stripped of the facades and power plays that defined his world. Sophia, for her part, felt a strange comfort in Santiago's presence, an unexpected security with this man who represented everything she had been taught to mistrust. A vibrating sound from Sophia's phone interrupted them, breaking the spell of their intimate moment. A new photo had arrived, one Sophia had programmed to be taken automatically when the hidden security camera in Julian's office was activated, a backup plan she had set as an extra precaution. Technology, which had so often been their salvation, now became an instrument of implacable truth. What is it? Santiago asked, his voice tense with a mix of anticipation and apprehension. Sophia looked at the image on her phone, and her face paled. The calm she had cultivated was instantly replaced by an expression of shock and alarm. Your partner is meeting with Vargas right now, she whispered, her voice barely audible, heavy with a new worry. And there's someone else, a woman I don't recognize. Santiago moved closer to the screen, a cold premonition tightening his chest, telling him that what he was about to see would not be good. His eyes fixed on the female figure, and the air left his lungs. It was a shock, a revelation that hit him with the force of a physical blow. That's Elena, he murmured, his voice a mere thread, as if the name itself burned his throat. My ex-girlfriend. The one he sabotaged. The same one who accused me of betrayal without any proof. The news left him breathless. A new layer of treachery added to the already unbearable pile of deceit. The one he sabotaged? Sophia asked, her voice filled with astonishment and a growing concern. Yes, the same one, Santiago confirmed, his jaw tight. He leaned closer to the screen, his eyes fixed on the image, trying to decipher the reason for her presence at this clandestine meeting. What the hell is Elena doing in a meeting with Julián and Vargas? He demanded, disbelief and a nascent rage coloring his voice. The situation was becoming more complex, murkier than it already was. Sophia zoomed in on the image as much as she could. It became slightly pixelated, but it allowed them to see more clearly the documents scattered on the table and the serious, almost conspiratorial expressions on the faces of the three. Elena did not look like a victim there. Her posture, her gaze, they suggested an active participation, an involvement that Santiago refused to accept. I think we should find out, Sophia said, her voice cautious, but her logic undeniable. If she's involved in this, if she's been part of the trap from the beginning, then we need to know. To protect ourselves. We can't leave any loose ends or trust old feelings. This is a war, Señor Morales. No. Santiago shook his head forcefully. The very idea that Elena could be part of the conspiracy was too painful to contemplate. An additional betrayal his heart was not ready to accept. Elena isn't like that. Julián deceived her as much as he did me. She was a victim of his manipulations, his lies, his twisted games. There has to be another explanation, an innocent reason for her to be there. But even as he said it, a small, persistent doubt began to grow in his mind. An inner voice whispering the possibility of an even more painful truth. What if Elena had been collaborating with Julián from the start? What if their relationship, their love, had also been part of some elaborate plan? A manipulation even crueler than the financial one. The idea was a slow-acting poison, an unbearable pain that threatened to shatter the last vestiges of his faith in people. Sophia noticed his anguished expression, the storm of doubt assailing him, and she gently placed a hand on his arm. It was an unexpected, but deeply welcome gesture of comfort. Hey, don't torture yourself with assumptions, Señor Morales, she said, her voice full of an empathy Santiago hadn't experienced in a long time. That will only consume you. Let's find out the facts first. Don't get ahead of yourself. The truth, however painful it may be, is always better than uncertainty. We will face it together. The touch of her hand, warm and firm, grounded him in a way he hadn't expected, a sense of peace he hadn't felt in days. He looked into her eyes, full of understanding and unconditional support, and he felt something he hadn't felt in a very long time. That he was not alone in this, that he had someone by his side in the middle of the storm. Thank you, Santiago said simply, the words carrying a meaning far deeper than they could express. It wasn't just a thank you for her help in that moment, but for everything. For risking all she had, her livelihood, her security, her future, to help a complete stranger. Thank you for being the only honest person in my world, Sophia, the only one who has had the courage to tell me the truth, no matter how bitter. You saved me from a ruin I couldn't see, from a betrayal I never expected, and from a loneliness I didn't know was waiting for me. Sophia blushed, a warmth rising up her neck and coloring her cheeks. She gently withdrew her hand, as if wary of the intensity of the moment, but not before they both felt it. The electricity, the undeniable spark of a connection that went beyond logic, that transcended the barriers of their very different worlds. All right, Sophia said, trying to regain a professional tone, though a hint of sweetness still lingered in her voice. So, what's the plan, Mr. Morales? Do we confront them tomorrow with everything we know, or do we wait to gather more evidence, to build an even more solid trap? For the first time in days, Santiago smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. A spark of mischief and determination he hadn't shown in a long time. It was the smile of a strategist who had found his perfect ally, the smile of someone who had moved from desperation to action. We're going to give them the show of their lives, Sophia, he said, his voice low and calculated, a revelation they will never forget. But first, I need to teach you something about recording conversations without being noticed. A little lesson in counterintelligence that will give us the final advantage. We'll need every piece of proof, every word, every confession to seal their fate. As they planned their next move, lost in the art of strategy and evidence gathering, neither of them realized they were building something far greater than a business strategy or a plan for revenge. They were building an unbreakable trust, a deep connection, a complicity that would change their lives forever, intertwining their destinies in a way they could never have imagined. The morning of the final confrontation dawned with a leaden sky over Bogotá, as if the city itself sensed the storm about to break in the highest corporate circles. Santiago arrived at the office early, the clock in his mind ticking off the seconds with almost painful precision. He had spent a sleepless night, not just from the nerves gnawing at his stomach, but because he couldn't stop thinking about Sophia, about the way she had risked everything for him, about her sharp intelligence, her unwavering courage, and the strange, comforting way her presence calmed him, even in the midst of the most relentless storm. It was a new feeling for him, accustomed as he was to carrying the weight of the world on his own shoulders. A feeling of lightness, of an unexpected camaraderie. Sophia was already waiting in his office, the same room that had witnessed their nights of planning, and was now the starting point for the final battle. With admirable concentration, she was checking the recording devices they had discreetly installed in the boardroom over the weekend, hiding them with almost professional expertise. Everything is ready, Mr. Morales, she said, showing him her tablet where they could monitor the recordings in real time, a window into the truth that was about to be revealed. The cameras are hidden behind the paintings, and the microphones, strategically placed under the table, will capture every word, every sigh, every confession. Nothing will be missed. Are you sure you want to be present when this blows up? Santiago asked, his voice tinged with concern. He knew the situation could get ugly, violent even, an explosion of rage and desperation from his betrayers. It could get very nasty, Sophia, more than you can imagine. Men like this, when they feel cornered, can be unpredictable and dangerous. Sophia looked at him with steely determination in her eyes, without a hint of hesitation. I've come this far, Mr. Morales. I'm not backing down now. This is for you, yes, but it's also for all the people these men have harmed, for my father, for justice. I won't leave until I see them face the consequences of their actions. At 10 o'clock sharp, the boardroom door opened with the familiar arrogance of men who believe themselves invincible. Julián and Ricardo Vargas entered with the confidence of those who think they have already won the game, that their deception was perfect. Julián wore his usual smile, one that Santiago now recognized as a mask of falsehood, a facade of friendship hiding an abyss of resentment. Brother, Julián exclaimed, clapping Santiago on the back, a gesture that once would have been affectionate, but now felt like a cruel mockery. I hope you slept well, because today we become the kings of Colombia, the undisputed tycoons of this country. Your fortune will multiply, and so will mine. Together, we'll be untouchable. Mr. Morales, Vargas greeted, shaking his hand with a firmness that now seemed to Santiago to be tinged with arrogant pride. I trust we have no more last-minute doubts, that your brain has processed the magnitude of this opportunity. Time is money, and we are about to make a colossal fortune. Not at all, Santiago replied, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, a cold, calculating smile that mirrored his determination, a perfect mask for the coming storm. In fact, I've been doing some additional research on our partnership, on the finer details that may have been overlooked. Julián frowned slightly, a shadow of doubt crossing his face. What kind of research, Santiago? I thought we had reviewed everything exhaustively. There's nothing new under the sun. Instead of answering with words, Santiago turned on the large screen in the room, connected to Sophia's system in the adjoining office. The image that appeared was the true financial statement of Vargas Corporation, showing red numbers everywhere, an undeniable bankruptcy, a financial abyss that could not be disguised. The silence in the room was deafening, thick with shock, fear, and the dawning desperation of the conspirators. What is this? Vargas asked, but his voice no longer sounded confident. His usual arrogance had vanished, replaced by a tone of alarm and a growing pallor. It was the voice of a cornered man, a predator who had just become the prey. It's the truth, Mr. Vargas, Santiago replied calmly, his voice firm and filled with an authority that left no room for doubt. The truth about your bankrupt company, about the plans you and my partner hatched to transfer all your debts and liabilities to my name, about the years of systematic sabotage to my company, my businesses, my personal life. It's the truth you tried to hide with deceit and lies, but the truth always comes to light, sooner or later. Julián turned pale, his face a mask of fear and disbelief. The shock of being discovered was palpable. Santiago, brother, I don't know where you got that, but someone is misleading you. Someone is putting strange ideas in your head. That information is false. It's slander. It's impossible. Someone like you, Julián, Santiago countered, his voice cold and sharp, without a trace of their former friendship. He switched to the next image on the screen, the email between Julián and Vargas, where they plotted his ruin, a digital confession. The proof was irrefutable, a direct stab to the heart of friendship and trust. Or would you rather we talk about how you sabotaged my relationship with Helena, how you manipulated my messages and sent fake photos to destroy my personal life, so she would leave me mired in loneliness and confusion? Julián shot up from his seat, his eyes bloodshot. For the first time in 20 years of friendship, Santiago saw his true face, cold, calculating, filled with a deep resentment and a bitter envy that had been festering just beneath the surface for years. It was the face of an unmasked traitor, an enemy who had been hiding in plain sight. You know what, Santiago? You're right, Julián said, with a cruel distorted smile, a grimace of pure malevolence that chilled Santiago to the bone. Years of accumulated fury and frustration erupted in a wild confession. Yes, I planned it all. Yes, I sabotaged your relationships, every single one of them, to see you suffer, to make you know what loneliness feels like. And yes, I'm glad I did it. I'm glad for every second of your pain, because you thought you had it all, and I was just the shadow, the second, the insignificant one. Finally, I can scream the truth. I can't stand living in your damn shadow anymore. Vargas tried to interrupt, a gesture of panic, trying to silence Julián before he sank himself completely. But Julián kept talking, as if years of repressed frustration and envy had finally found an explosive outlet. Do you think it was easy living in your shadow all these years, Santiago? Julián shouted, his voice echoing with a visceral bitterness that filled the boardroom. You were the smart one, the charismatic one, the one who always got everything, born under a lucky star. I was just your shadow, the loyal sidekick, the one who settled for the crumbs of your success. Even when your mother died, you turned even that into an advantage with the insurance money, an opportunity for your damn company. Always the victim, always the one rising from the ashes like a damn phoenix, while I remained invisible. Santiago felt as if he'd been punched in the stomach, a blow so hard it knocked the wind out of him. Julián's words, laden with an unsuspected venom, revealed a deep wound, an envy so ingrained it had corrupted his soul. Julián, Santiago cried out, a mixture of pain, anger, and disbelief. How could you? I always considered you my brother. No, Julián interrupted, his eyes gleaming with a feverish madness. It's time you heard the truth. You always had everything served on a silver platter. The money to start the company, the luck with investors, the natural charisma to win everyone over. And what about me? I was just the faithful friend who followed you like a dog, who picked up your scraps, who lived off the crumbs of your glory, always second, always in your shadow, always the one who had to settle for the leftovers of your success. Now it's my turn. Now I'm going to be the king, and you're going to be, though, the one who falls. Vargas had quietly risen from his seat, trying to go unnoticed, and was stealthily making his way toward the boardroom door, clearly intending to escape the disaster Julián was creating. However, with a calculated calm and cold anticipation, Santiago pressed a button on a small remote. Immediately, a dull, metallic sound echoed through the room, the unmistakable click of the automatic locks engaging, sealing the door and trapping them all inside. No one is leaving, Santiago said, his voice quiet but with an unbreakable authority, a sentence that sealed his traitor's fate. We are not nearly finished. The show is just beginning. This is kidnapping, Vargas protested, his voice trembling with rage and panic, his face now completely livid. You have no right to do this. We could sue you for unlawful detention, for coercion, for everything you can think of. This is a serious crime. This isn't kidnapping, Mr. Vargas, Santiago retorted, a cold, bitter smile playing on his lips. This is justice. And justice is sometimes slow, but it always arrives. The National Police and the Attorney General's office already have copies of all the evidence we've collected. Every document, every recording, every irrefutable proof of your crimes. I delivered it to them myself. They are on their way, and I assure you it won't be long before they arrive to take you where you belong. The games, the lies, the manipulations are over. Julián looked at him with a mixture of visceral hatred and a strange admiration, a flicker of respect for Santiago's cunning. "How did you find out, Santiago?" Julián asked, his voice lower now, the rage replaced by a mix of defeat and insatiable curiosity. "Was it Elena?" "No, she would never have." He stopped abruptly, as if remembering something, his eyes fixing on a distant point, a sudden idea illuminating his face. "The cleaning lady!" he exclaimed, a malicious, almost triumphant smile appearing on his lips. "That woman who was always around like a ghost, unseen, unnoticed. She told you, didn't she? That miserable cleaner." Santiago felt a pang of protectiveness for Sophia, an overwhelming need to defend her from Julián's malice. "She has nothing to do with this. Don't you dare drag her into your filthy schemes." Julián laughed bitterly, a hollow, disdainful sound that echoed in the boardroom and twisted in Santiago's mind like a poison. "Oh, Santiago, my naive brother," he said, his mocking tone piercing Santiago's heart. "Do you really believe that a simple cleaner, a woman with no connections, no power, nothing to lose, would risk her job, her livelihood, her future, out of pure kindness, out of the goodness of her heart, for the love of justice? Please, you were always too naive, too trusting, too blind to see the evil in the world, to see beyond your own nose. People act out of self-interest, Santiago, always. And women, my dear friend, even more so. There isn't a drop of altruism in this world, only a constant struggle for power, for money, for survival. How do you know this isn't another trap?" Julián continued, his words falling like pure venom into Santiago's ears. A seed of doubt, small, tiny, but insidious and persistent, began to grow in his mind, eating away at his newfound trust. "How do you know she hasn't been planning for months to get close to you? A rich and powerful man, to use your fortune for her own ends? To climb the ladder? To get revenge for something you did? Or simply to rob you? How do you know this isn't an even more elaborate plan than ours, Santiago? A plan where you, the millionaire, are just a pawn in her chess game?" The wail of police sirens, growing louder outside the building with a deafening urgency, cut Julián's tirade short. A malicious smile played on his lips as the officers stormed into the room, their faces grim, their weapons holstered, ready to do their duty. "Think about it, Santiago," Julián said as they cuffed him, his gaze still locked on Santiago's eyes, sowing the last and cruelest seed of doubt. "A cleaning lady who just happens to uncover such an elaborate scheme, who just happens to have all the evidence, who just happens to appear in your life right when you need her most, just as you were about to lose everything. Doesn't that seem like too much of a coincidence? A suspicious coincidence that borders on manipulation?" As they led Julián and Vargas away in handcuffs, Julián's final words echoed in Santiago's mind, a sinister melody of doubt that refused to be silenced. For the first time since he had met Sophia, since she had burst into his life like a ray of truth in the darkness, Santiago wondered if he truly knew her intentions, if her help had been genuine or part of some hidden agenda. The trap he had laid for Julián and Vargas had worked perfectly. Justice had prevailed. They were both under arrest, his company was safe, and he had, technically, won the most important battle of his life. But as he watched his former best friend disappear through the door, escorted by the police, Santiago realized Julián had managed to plant one last seed of destruction, one far more insidious and dangerous than any financial fraud. This time, the poison was aimed directly at Santiago's heart, at his ability to trust, at his newfound faith in Sofia. That night, Santiago couldn't sleep. Julian's words replayed in his head like a persistent echo, a demonic voice repeating the same question over and over. How do you know she hasn't been planning to get close to you for months? He had stayed in the office until late, reviewing all the evidence Sofia had collected, the photos, the recordings, the emails. Everything seemed perfect, too perfect, as if it had been designed with a surgical precision, an unnerving foresight. Was it possible that a simple cleaning lady, a woman with no resources, no connections, no experience in the corporate world, had stumbled upon such a complex, well-guarded plan by pure chance? The doubt, once minuscule, had now grown into a monster devouring him from within, a relentless beast that stole his sleep and what little peace he had left. When Sophia arrived for her night shift, in her gray uniform and with her cleaning kit, Santiago was waiting for her in his office, the same office that had become their sanctuary of secrets and conspiracies. The expression on his face was grave, somber, a far cry from the euphoria one would expect from a man who had just saved his empire. "How are you feeling?" she asked with a sincere smile, oblivious to the torment consuming him. But her expression changed when she saw his face, the coldness in his eyes, the tension in his jaw. "What is it, Mr. Morales? I thought you'd be celebrating, that you could finally rest now that justice has prevailed." The atmosphere in the room grew tense, charged with an uncomfortable electricity, an unasked question hanging in the air like the sword of Damocles. "I need to ask you something," Santiago said, his voice colder than it had been in days, stripped of the warmth and closeness they had forged over the last few nights. "And I need you to be completely honest with me, Sophia. No half-truths, no evasions, no pity. Just the truth, no matter how painful. Because my peace of mind depends on it, and my trust in you is hanging by a very thin thread." Sophia sat down slowly, her honey-colored eyes reflecting a growing confusion, a pang of apprehension beginning to take hold. "Of course, Mr. Morales. Ask me anything. I have nothing to hide," she replied, though an inner voice warned her that the conversation was about to take an unexpected, dangerous turn. "When did you really decide to help me?" Santiago asked, the question hitting her like a slap, sharp with unexpected acidity. "Was it when you saw me about to sign that contract, at that exact moment in the boardroom? Or was it much earlier? Was this planned from the beginning, Sophia? Your appearance? Your help? Was this all a stratagem?" The question struck her like lightning from a clear sky, a low, unexpected, and cruel blow that left her breathless. Sophia blinked several times, her eyes filling with a mixture of disbelief and a deep, searing hurt. "I don't understand, Mr. Morales," she said, her voice barely a whisper as she fought back the tears that were already welling up. "I helped you when I saw you were about to make a terrible mistake, an error that would have cost you everything. Your company, your future, your life. I already explained how I found out, how I overheard the conversations, how I found the documents. I was an accidental witness, not a conspirator. Julián said something before they took him away, Santiago interrupted, his voice relentless, merciless, leaving no room for defense as the shadow of doubt Julián had cast consumed him completely. He said it was too much of a coincidence that a cleaning lady, someone with no connections or power, would uncover everything by accident, a plan so complex and well hidden. He said it was suspicious, that it was a trap, that you could be using me for your own ends, to get ahead, to get revenge, for anything. And the truth is, Sophia, his words made me doubt, a doubt that now torments me, that won't let me sleep, that is eating me alive. Sophia's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of a profound wound, an indignation that burned in her soul, a betrayal even more painful than the one her father had suffered. Her face contorted in an expression of pain that Santiago could not ignore. Really, Mr. Morales? Sophia said, her voice trembling with contained rage and immense sorrow. After everything we've been through together, after every risk I've taken, every sleepless night, every hour I have dedicated to helping you, to unmasking your traitors, to saving your empire, you're asking me if I'm a con artist too, another manipulator, another person who wants to take advantage of you? You're accusing me of being an imposter, a false savior. I just need to be sure, Santiago replied, his voice weak, almost inaudible. But the cruelty of his words echoed in the room, injecting a poison Sophia could not bear. My God, Sophia murmured, her voice a mere sigh of despair and pain. She stood up abruptly, the movement charged with justified fury and deep desperation. Her eyes, flooded with tears, stared at Santiago with a mixture of disbelief and a pain that tore her apart. After everything we've been through, Mr. Morales, she began, her voice trembling but with a strength it hadn't had before. After I risked my job, my safety, my reputation, everything I have in this world, just to help you, a complete stranger, now you doubt me? Now you believe I'm a manipulator, a fraud like Julián and Vargas? That my help was part of a plan to take advantage of your fortune, your power? In that instant, Santiago realized how incredibly cruel his words sounded, how unjust his accusation was. But the seed of doubt Julián had planted in his mind had grown too large, poisoning his judgment and blinding him to the truth right in front of him. It's just, I can't help but think, Santiago began, his words faltering, searching for an excuse, a justification for his cruel interrogation. Think what? Sophia cried, the tears now streaming freely down her cheeks, a cascade of pain she could no longer contain. Her voice, once controlled, was now a scream of agony and frustration. Think that a poor cleaning lady, a woman with no resources, no status, no family name to back her up, can't possibly be honest. That someone like me, from a world so different from yours, could only approach someone like you out of self-interest, ambition, a thirst for revenge, or to steal your fortune. Is that what you believe, Mr. Morales? That my kindness was a sham? That my courage was just a disguise for my true intentions? That's not what I meant, Santiago stammered, regret hitting him with the force of a thunderbolt as he realized the magnitude of his mistake, how deeply he had wounded the only person who had been genuine with him. It's exactly what you meant, Sophia cried, her voice breaking into a sob. And you know what the worst part is, Santiago? You're right about one thing. It was too much of a coincidence. Too much of a coincidence that I would be stupid enough, naive enough, to fall in love with you, to fall at your feet, to give you my heart, knowing the distance that separates us, the chasm between our worlds. That was the real trap, the only trap I fell into. Sophia's words, an unexpected and heartbreaking confession, fell between them like glass shattering into 1,000 pieces. The sound of undeniable truth resonated in the tense silence of the office. They both stood motionless, petrified by the revelation, processing what had just been confessed, the exposed vulnerability of an unrequited love that had blossomed amidst conspiracy and betrayal. The air became unbreathable, heavy with Santiago's regret and Sophia's unbearable pain. Sophia, no, Santiago stammered, reaching out a hand, wanting to close the distance, to undo the damage. But she shook her head, wiping her tears with the back of a trembling hand, her gaze now distant, as if she had already surrendered. I understand now, Santiago, she said, her voice low and resigned, but with an unshakable resolve that signaled a final, irrevocable decision. No matter how much we work together, no matter how many secrets we share or battles we fight side by side, no matter if I save you from ruin, I will always just be the cleaning lady who might have been playing a game. A woman you will always doubt. You will never be able to trust me completely because I come from a different world than yours. A world that, to you, is synonymous with deceit, self-interest, and manipulation. For you, love and honesty are privileges of your class, not virtues of those of us from below. She walked toward the door, her steps firm despite the trembling in her soul, but stopped just before leaving. Her final words were a sentence that froze Santiago's blood. I quit, she said, without turning, without looking back, as if doing so might make her resolve waver. And I'm leaving Bogotá. I'm transferring to the University of Medellin tomorrow, thousands of kilometers from here. Don't worry, Mr. Morales. You'll never have to doubt my intentions again, because you will never see me again. I'll be a ghost, a memory that will fade with time. Thank you for the lesson, though it has been the most painful one of my life. When the door clicked shut, Santiago was left alone in his office, feeling emptier than he had ever felt before. The silence of the room echoed with his cruel words and the irrevocable departure of Sophia, the only person who had truly seen him and saved him. The following days passed in a haze of regret and profound loneliness. Santiago's world, which had been on the brink of collapse just days before, was now secure. But the victory felt hollow, meaningless, without Sophia to share it with. Julián and Vargas faced serious criminal charges for corporate fraud and conspiracy, their empires crumbling like sandcastles against the tide of justice. His company was safe, stronger than ever, and he had technically won on all fronts. But the bitterness of his triumph was unbearable. He had saved his fortune, yes, but he had lost something far more valuable, something money could not buy or repair: the trust and perhaps the love of the one person who had proven herself to be truly honest and brave. A week after Sophia's departure, Santiago received an unexpected call, a voice from a past he thought he would never hear again. Santiago Morales, this is Elena Fuentes, the voice said on the other end of the line. His ex-girlfriend, the woman whose relationship Julián had so cruelly sabotaged, was an echo from a simpler time before his world had fallen apart. Elena, how are you? Santiago asked, a mix of surprise and curiosity in his voice. I'm well, thank you, she replied, her tone more mature, more serene than he remembered. I heard about what happened with Julián and Vargas, and I wanted to talk to you. I need to tell you some things. Can we meet? It's important. They met at a discreet cafe downtown, a neutral ground for a conversation that promised to be revealing. Elena looked different, more mature, with a serenity he didn't recall. And to Santiago's surprise, a wedding ring shone discreetly on her left hand. You're married? Santiago asked, the question slipping out before he could stop it, a pang of surprise at how her life had moved on. For 2 years now, Elena smiled, a genuine, happy smile that hid nothing. To a wonderful man I met after us. He's a good man, simple, honest. He loves me for who I am, not for what I have or who I'm supposed to be. He makes me happy in a way I never thought possible. Elena continued, her voice soft but firm. Santiago, about that, I know now that Julián lied to you about me. He confessed everything a few days ago, after he was arrested. I know he told you terrible things that weren't true, that he manipulated every detail to drive us apart. He asked me to go to that meeting with you and Vargas I don't know, to confuse you more, to create a distraction. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't keep playing his dirty games. The weight of his lies was too much for me. I regret that I ever believed him. Why are you telling me all this, Elena? Santiago asked, his mind still reeling, struggling to grasp the weight of her apologies and confessions. He felt lost in the whirlwind of emotion. Elena looked him directly in the eye, with a sincerity that reminded him of Sophia's. Because I want you to know something important, Santiago. Even if Julián hadn't interfered, even if his lies hadn't torn us apart, we would have never worked out in the long run. It wasn't real love, not a true connection. Her words surprised him, but they also ignited a spark of understanding. What do you mean? He asked, intrigued. We were compatible on paper, Mr. Morales, Elena explained, her voice soft, yet laced with a hard-won wisdom. We had the same social circles, the same superficial interests, the same friends. But we never had that real connection, that depth that makes a relationship last. I fell in love with the idea of you, the successful entrepreneur, the powerful man, not with who you truly were, not with your soul, your essence. And you, well, I think with me, you were always the Santiago you thought you should be. The perfect, untouchable man who had to impress everyone, not the man you really were. With all your fears, your vulnerabilities, your most private dreams. Elena leaned forward, her voice dropping to a near confidential tone, yet ringing with a conviction that resonated in Santiago's heart. But I heard about the woman who helped you discover all this. The cleaner, she said, her eyes glinting with a perceptiveness that stunned him. And the way you talk about her, the way your eyes change when you mention her name, even now, when you think she's gone, it's different. It's real, Santiago. It's a connection that isn't based on appearances, or status, or money. It's something pure, something genuine, something I could never offer you, and that you could never show me. It doesn't matter anymore, Elena, Santiago murmured, his voice thick with a profound regret. I lost her. I lost her because I was an idiot, because I let the doubt of a traitor poison my mind and destroy the most precious thing I had ever found. I lost her because of my own cowardice, my inability to trust completely, to see beyond the surface. Did you lose her, or did you let her go, out of fear? Elena's question struck him like a bolt of lightning, an uncomfortable truth that stole his breath. She was right. He hadn't lost Sophia to chance or a cruel twist of fate. He had pushed her away out of fear. Fear of trusting completely, fear of being vulnerable again, fear that someone could hurt him the way Julián had, fear of what it meant to love someone so different from him, fear of the truth in his own heart. The revelation hit him with devastating force. Where is she now? Santiago asked, his voice urgent, determination returning to his eyes, a new resolve igniting in his soul. She went to Medellin, transferred universities, Elena replied, a small smile playing on her lips, satisfied to have spurred him to action. Then I think you know what you have to do, Santiago, she said, standing up and giving him one last, encouraging look. And this time, don't let fear make the decision for you. Don't cling to old wounds. Fight for what really matters, for what makes you feel alive. 2 hours later, Santiago was sprinting through the Bogotá bus terminal, a ticket to Medellin clutched in his hand, his heart pounding like never before, a frantic rhythm that filled his ears and his soul. It was a chaotic symphony of people, loudspeaker announcements, farewells, and reunions. But he had only one goal: find Sophia. For the first time in his life, he was chasing something that truly mattered, something that transcended business, money, and status. He was running without calculations, without cold, elaborate plans, armed only with the desperate hope that it wasn't too late. Sophia's bus was scheduled to leave in 10 minutes. He had one chance, a single, fleeting opportunity to fix the biggest mistake of his life. The urgency consumed him. Every second was an agony. He raced to the boarding platform just as the bus, a metal giant that seemed to be carrying away all his hopes, began to move, its engine roaring to life. Without a second thought, driven by a visceral desperation, he slammed both hands against the side of the bus, begging with every fiber of his being for it to stop. Wait, please, he yelled, his voice hoarse with effort and emotion, running alongside the moving vehicle, ignoring the bewildered stares from passengers and terminal staff. The driver, annoyed by the interruption, finally stopped and opened the door, his face a mask of irritation. Hey, mister, what's your problem? We're on a schedule. Santiago climbed aboard, gasping for air, his chest heaving as he frantically scanned the passengers. His eyes swept over every row, every face, until he found her. There she was, Sophia, in a seat by the window, her eyes red and swollen from crying, an expression of utter shock on her face as she saw him standing in the aisle, breathless and desperate. His heart leaped. Sophia, he said, moving slowly down the aisle, his footsteps echoing in the bus's sudden silence as every passenger watched with insatiable curiosity. The tension was palpable. Please, don't go, he pleaded. Don't leave without hearing me out, without giving me a chance to fix this, to apologize for my stupidity, for my blindness. What are you doing here? She whispered, quickly wiping away her tears as if trying to erase any trace of her pain. Her voice was a mixture of astonishment, confusion, and a fledgling hope that refused to be extinguished. I came to ask for your forgiveness, Sophia, Santiago replied, his voice heavy with a sincerity that ached in his soul. I'm sorry for doubting you, for letting a traitor's words poison my mind. I'm sorry for being a coward who couldn't see the truth right in front of him. I'm sorry for my selfishness, for my pride. And I came to tell you that you are the best thing that has ever happened to me. That without you, my victory feels empty. My world makes no sense. You are the only person who has ever truly seen me, who saved me, not just from ruin, but from myself. Santiago, please. Sophia glanced around, acutely aware of their audience. The murmuring of the other passengers grew louder, their curious gazes fixed upon them. This isn't the way, not here. People are watching. You're right, he said. Then, to the astonishment of everyone, Sophia included, Santiago knelt in the aisle of the bus. He didn't care about the stares, the whispers, the judgment of strangers. It was an act of humility, of desperation, and of love. This isn't the right way, Sophia, he continued, his voice firm, his eyes locked on hers, ignoring the world around them. But it's the only way I have left to show you how I feel. To beg you to stay. To give me a second chance. I don't care what they think. I don't care what they say. I only care about you, your forgiveness, your love. The passengers' murmurs intensified. Some moved, others shocked. But Santiago only had eyes for her. Sophia Cortés, he said, his voice ringing with overwhelming sincerity. You are the bravest, most intelligent, and most honest woman I have ever known. You risked everything, your job, your safety, your future, to save a stranger. To save someone who didn't deserve you. Someone who then wounded you with his doubt. And I was so cowardly, so stupid, that I let the words of a bitter traitor make me question you. Question your goodness. I am sorry from the very bottom of my soul. Tears streamed down Sophia's cheeks again, but this time they were tears of emotion, of relief, of an unexpected hope blooming in her heart. Santiago, get up, she whispered, a plea. Not until you hear me out, he continued, unyielding. I don't care where you come from, Sophia, or what your job is or your social status. I care about who you are at your core. I care about your noble heart, your sharp mind, your unbreakable courage. I care that you see the man in me I truly want to be, not the one I think I have to be. Not the ruthless businessman, but the man who loves you, who needs you, who values you above everything else. What are you saying? Sophia asked, her voice barely a thread, her eyes searching his, looking for any trace of doubt, of pity, of anything that wasn't genuine love. Santiago took her hands in his, lacing their fingers together in a gesture of intimate commitment. I'm saying that I love you, Sophia. His voice was strong and clear, resonating with an emotion he had never before expressed so freely. And I'm saying that I want to build something with you, not just a company, but a life, a future, as equal partners, as companions, as soulmates. I don't want to be the millionaire and the cleaning lady. I want to be Santiago and Sophia, two people who found each other at the exact moment they needed each other most. Two lost souls who found each other in the middle of a storm and who now want to navigate together toward a new horizon, uncertain but full of hope. Sophia looked into his eyes, searching his soul, but she found no shadow of falsehood, only genuine love, unwavering determination, and a vulnerability that moved her to her core. This was the real Santiago, stripped of his masks, his pride, his status. What if it doesn't work? She asked, her voice trembling, the fears of the past still whispering in her ear. We come from such different worlds, Santiago. People will always point and judge and try to pull us apart. The challenges will be immense. Then we will create our own world. Santiago answered, his voice filled with a conviction that allowed no doubt. A world where what matters isn't where you come from, or your last name, or your bank account, but where you're going, who you are in your heart, and how you build your future. A world where trust and respect are our foundation, where love is our guide, and where our differences make us stronger, not weaker. Sophia closed her eyes for a moment, weighing his words, feeling the gravity of the decision before her. When she opened them, a smile lit up the entire bus, a smile that shone with its own light, dispelling the darkness of the past. Okay, she said finally, her voice firm, the single word filling Santiago's heart with relief. But on one condition. Anything you want. The next time you have doubts about me, Santiago, Sophia continued, her gaze steady, you come to me directly. No assumptions, no hidden fears, no letting others poison your mind. We talk. As adults, as partners, as the couple we are going to be, with total transparency and total honesty. If something is bothering you, you tell me, and we face it together. Otherwise, there's no future for us. Santiago broke into a smile, a pure, unadulterated happiness. It was a fair condition, one that would fortify the very foundation of their relationship. He stood up, his heart overflowing. Deal, Sophia, he promised. Always the truth, always with trust, always together. As they kissed for the first time, a kiss heavy with promises and an uncertain but hopeful future, the passengers, who had been silent witnesses to the drama, erupted in applause, moved by the romance that had unfolded before them. The driver, catching the moment in his rearview mirror, simply smiled. Well, the driver shouted, his voice breaking their romantic bubble. Are you two getting off or what? I've got a schedule to keep. Reality hit them with a touch of humor. They got off the bus hand in hand, ready to write the next chapter of their story. 6 months later, they were in the same boardroom where it had all begun. The scene of Santiago's near ruin and the start of his unexpected alliance with Sophia now had a completely different atmosphere. The air, once thick with tension and betrayal, now vibrated with positive energy, with the excitement of a new beginning. Santiago and Sophia sat side by side, their hands almost touching, as they signed the incorporation documents for their new company, Morales Sancretes Consulting, a name that blended their own, a tangible symbol of their union in business and in life. Are you sure about this, Sophia? Santiago asked, looking at the contracts with a mixture of pride and a flicker of his old caution, though his voice was full of happiness. You can still change your mind. This is a huge commitment. Sophia smiled, a radiant, confident smile, the same one that had lit up the bus that day. She signed her name with a firm, steady hand, her conviction absolute. Every stroke of the pen was a declaration of independence, of empowerment. I have never been more certain of anything in my life, Santiago, she replied, her voice clear and filled with determination. This is my company, our company, and I will build it with you from the ground up, with the values of honesty, transparency, and justice that brought us together. There is no doubt in my heart. Their consulting firm had grown rapidly in just a few months, specializing in a crucial niche, helping small and medium-sized businesses compete with large corporations, protecting them from corporate predators, and navigating the turbulent waters of the market. Sophia had graduated from university with honors. Her intelligence and business ethics were already recognized in the sector, and now she was as respected in the business world as Santiago himself. By the way, Santiago said, a tremor of nervousness in his voice that Sophia detected instantly. His hands trembled slightly as he pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. His eyes shone with a mixture of emotion and profound sincerity. Sophia looked at the box, and her heart immediately began to race. The understanding of what was about to happen flooded her mind. It was a moment she had dreamed of, but never truly believed would become reality. Sophia Cortez, he said, kneeling for the second time in his life, but this time in private, in the very place where it had all begun, in the heart of their new life together. The gesture, intimate and profound, needed no witnesses to be powerful. I want you to be my partner for life, in every sense of the word, my companion, my confidant, my soulmate. Will you marry me, Sophia? Will you build a life, a family, an empire, by my side, forever? When she said yes, tears of happiness streaming down her cheeks, and a smile illuminating the room, they both knew they had found something far more valuable than any corporate merger, more precious than any imaginable fortune. They had found a love built on a solid foundation of unwavering trust, mutual respect, deep admiration, and the ability to forgive and to overcome together. Julian's trap had been designed to destroy Santiago, to reduce him to ashes. But in the end, paradoxically, it had been the catalyst, the spark that had united them, that had revealed the true nature of the people around them, and that had forced Santiago to see what truly mattered in life. And as they embraced in that boardroom, surrounded by the documents of their new life together, their new company, their shared future, they both understood that sometimes the best things, the purest and most enduring, arise from the darkest moments, from the most difficult trials, from the most painful betrayals. True love, they realized, is not built on perfection, in the absence of mistakes or doubts. It is built on the capacity to choose each other again and again, even when fear whispers lies in your ear, even when the past tries to drag you back into the darkness. It is built on vulnerability, on brutal honesty, on the willingness to risk everything for the other. And they, Santiago and Sofia, had chosen well. They had chosen the path of courage, of faith, of unbreakable commitment. Years later, the morning sun streamed majestically through the panoramic windows of the new Morales San Cortes Consulting Building. Located in the vibrant business heart of Bogotá, it was a skyscraper of glass and steel that symbolized their ascent and their success. What had begun as a small, borrowed office, a dark cubicle where Sophia cleaned at night, had now become a leading consulting firm in the country, with over 50 dedicated employees and offices in 3 key Colombian cities. It was the materialization of their dreams, the tangible proof of their vision and hard work, a legacy they were building together. Santiago was reviewing the quarterly financial statements, the numbers dancing on his screen, reflecting exponential growth and resounding success, when Sophia entered their shared office, a spacious, light-filled area designed for two. She carried 2 steaming cups of coffee and a smile that still made him feel like it was the first day, as if time hadn't passed, as if their love was as fresh as it was at the beginning. "The numbers for this quarter are incredible," she said, sitting comfortably at the desk opposite his, her voice full of pride and satisfaction. "We've helped over 200 small businesses stay competitive, protect themselves from the sharks, and grow ethically. We've made a real difference in so many people's lives, Santiago. It's not just about money. It's about purpose, about social impact." "Do you know what the best part of it all is?" Santiago asked, taking her hand, where the wedding ring they had now worn for a year gleamed, a symbol of their unbreakable union. "That we're doing it together, Sophia. Every step, every triumph, every challenge. With you by my side, anything is possible. Everything makes sense." Sophia smiled and looked toward the window, her eyes fixed on the distance, where the old corporate building stood, the place where it all began, where the storm had been unleashed and their love had been born. "Sometimes I think about how different everything would have been if I hadn't dared to speak to you that day," she murmured, her voice a mixture of wonder and gratitude. "Or if I had been too proud to listen," he added, "too proud to see past my doubts, to forgive you. Life is strange, isn't it?" They fell silent for a moment, each lost in their own thoughts, in the labyrinth of what might have been and what finally was. Julián had been sentenced to 5 years in prison for corporate fraud and manipulation, but his sentence was reduced for collaborating with authorities to dismantle other scam networks in the country, a small glimpse of redemption in his dark story. Vargas had lost absolutely everything: his fortune, his reputation, his power. In a cruel irony of fate, he now worked as a humble insurance salesman, slowly paying off the immense debts he had created. "Do you ever miss him?" Sophia asked softly, breaking the silence, her voice barely a whisper. "Julián, I mean, the friend you thought he was." Santiago considered the question carefully. A shadow of melancholy crossed his face, but quickly dissipated. "I miss the friend I thought he was," he replied, "the person I trusted blindly, the idealized version I had of him. But that person never really existed, Sophia. He was an illusion, a facade. The real Julián, the one who betrayed me so coldly, the one who tried to destroy me out of envy. I don't miss him. His betrayal hurt me more than I ever imagined. It was a devastating blow, but it also, paradoxically, set me free. Set you free? Sophia asked, intrigued by his deep reflection, by the transformation he had undergone through adversity. Yes, Santiago explained, his voice gentle with a wisdom only experience can provide. It freed me from the need to be perfect all the time, from pretending I could do everything alone, that I didn't need anyone, that I was invincible. It taught me that it's okay to trust people, but it's also okay to be selective about who I trust. That true trust is earned over time with honesty. And above all, it taught me to trust myself, my intuition, my ability to get back up after a fall, and to value people for who they are, not for what they have or pretend to be. Sophia moved closer, perching on the arm of his chair, her eyes shining with love and admiration. And I learned, she added, her voice sweet, that true love isn't about coming from the same place or having the same history or the same social status. It's about wanting to go to the same destination. It's about building a future together, supporting each other through good times and bad, choosing each other every single day, no matter the difficulties. I learned that true wealth isn't in bank accounts, but in the connection with people who love and value you for who you are. A soft, rhythmic knock on the door interrupted them. A familiar interruption they both welcomed, for it meant the presence of someone they loved. It was Anna, Sophia's sister. She had finished medical school with honors the previous year and was now working tirelessly at a public hospital in the city, saving with determination for her specialization in pediatrics. Sorry to interrupt, lovebirds, Anna said with a radiant smile, her eyes twinkling with a mix of mischief and affection. But I wanted to thank you before I leave. It's something I can't keep to myself any longer, a secret burning a hole in my tongue. Thank us for what, Anna? Sophia asked, her voice full of curiosity as she looked at her sister with a puzzled expression. For paying for my pediatrics specialization. I just signed all the papers, and I can't believe it. It's a dream come true, and I know you two made it possible. You're giving me the opportunity of a lifetime, the chance to save lives, to help the little ones. Sophia looked at Santiago in surprise, a mixture of astonishment and deep gratitude. They had talked about helping Anna with her specialization, about supporting her dream, but he had acted without telling her, a gesture of generosity that moved her deeply. Santiago, Sophia began, her eyes welling up with emotion. It was a surprise, he said, shrugging with a modest smile, downplaying his enormous gesture. Anna is going to be an incredible pediatrician, Sophia, and we can afford it. Besides, family is family. We always support each other. It's what we do, right? Anna came over and hugged them both tightly, her own eyes shining with grateful tears. You're going to be the most incredible aunt and uncle in the world, she said. The line delivered so naturally it left them stunned. Then, before they could ask what she meant, she hurried away, leaving them with a new question hanging in the air. Santiago and Sophia looked at each other, confused, trying to decipher Anna's words. Do you think she meant? Santiago began, his eyes fixed on Sophia's, a hopeful smile beginning to form on his lips. That we're pregnant? Sophia completed, her voice barely a whisper, but with a growing certainty. They stared at each other, and slowly, The smiles on their faces grew, a wonderful realization filling them with overwhelming joy. Really? Santiago asked, his eyes shining with uncontainable happiness, standing up so quickly he nearly knocked over his chair. Sophia nodded, tears of joy now streaming freely down her cheeks. Well, I'm a week late, and this morning I couldn't even look at coffee. I think so, Santiago. We're going to be parents. Santiago couldn't contain his emotion. He swept Sophia into his arms, lifted her off the floor, and spun her around the office, laughing out loud, not caring if the entire building could hear him. We're going to be parents, he shouted, his voice echoing with a happiness that consumed him completely. As he held her in his arms, they both thought of the incredible path that had led them to this moment. A whispered warning in a boardroom, a trap discovered just in time, a bond forged in the most unexpected way, a love that had blossomed in adversity, built on a foundation of trust, respect, and brutal honesty. You know what? Sophia said, gently stroking his cheek, her eyes full of love and gratitude. I think Julián was right about one thing. What was that? Santiago asked, curious. It was too much of a coincidence that we met right when we needed each other most, at the darkest moment of your life and mine. But it wasn't a trap, Santiago. It wasn't a coincidence or a deception. Then what was it? Santiago asked, his eyes locked on hers, searching for the answer. Sophia smiled, looking toward the future they were building together. Their thriving company, their solid marriage, the baby on the way, and all the adventures that still awaited them. It was destiny, she said simply, her voice filled with a deep, unshakable conviction that filled the air. The best kind of destiny, Santiago. The kind you build with brave choices, with calculated risks, with vulnerability, with honesty, and above all, with true love. With the ability to choose each other again and again, even when fear whispers lies in your ear. And as the Bogotá sun bathed their office in a warm, golden light, enveloping them in an embrace of hope and happiness, Santiago and Sophia knew they had chosen correctly. They hadn't just avoided Julián's trap, that web of deceit designed to destroy them. They had built something far better, something infinitely more valuable than any fortune or corporate empire, something that no malice, no betrayal could ever destroy. They had built a life together, a family, a legacy of love and purpose. And that, without a single doubt, was the greatest victory of all.